YouTube, what is going on, y'all? It's your boy Young Texas and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. In today's video, I tier rank every single primary weapon here in Call of Duty Vanguard. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So here we go. We have every single primary weapon here in Call of Duty Vanguard on this tier list. I actually went ahead and made this tier list myself. As you can see here, it says follow Young Texas. That's because I'm the person who made this one. So let's just go ahead and get started. Right off the bat, we have the STG. Now, I would say that the STG is undoubtedly going to be an S tier weapon. It has been meta since the inception of Call of Duty Vanguard. And yeah, that makes it S tier for me because it is honestly one of the best weapons in Vanguard. Moving on, we have the Automaton. This is a very good assault rifle, and honestly, it's also an S tier weapon. It is one of the most consistent assault rifles throughout the entire year of Vanguard. It was the assault rifle mainly used in the CDL, and in my opinion, it is also an S tier weapon. Now, moving on, now these pictures aren't actually labeled, so it's going to be a little difficult for me sometimes to figure out which gun is which, but I believe right here is the Ppsh Burst. Now, this is either an A, or not really an A, it's probably a B or C tier for me. I'm going to go ahead and give it a B tier because I do think the Ppsh is actually a pretty solid weapon all around. So for me, it's going to be slipping straight on into that B tier. Moving on, though, we do have the Bar assault rifle. Now, the Bar is a solid weapon. The only issue for me is the fire rate, so it's kind of between A and B. But because of how historic the Bar is and how it has really good firepower, I'm going to go ahead and give it an A tier. So, moving on from the Bar, we have the AS-44. Now, I believe this here is the AS-44, and again, for me, this is going to be an A tier weapon. It's one of the assault rifles with the fastest fire rates in Vanguard, and it's also got really good firepower. So for me, the AS-44 is probably an A/B tier, but I'm going to be generous and I'm going to give it that A tier. Next up is the NZ41. Now, I do have to try and find the NZ41 picture down here. Give me a quick second. I really wish I had labeled these. It would have made it so much easier, but I decided not to. The NZ is pretty unique looking, so I've just got to go ahead and actually, actually find it now. Well, hold on. The NZ, I might have forgotten to put the NZ on here. I think I forgot to put the NZ. Wait, is this the NZ? No. Hold on, is the NZ41 not on here? Well, that's unfortunate. I actually don't think it is on here. I think I forgot the NZ41. Well, that said, I do think the NZ41 is probably sliding into that B tier. It is a pretty good weapon, but it's not the best. But it's also better than average. So I'd say average is like B/C, so it's better than average, so I'm going to slide it straight on into that B tier. Next up, though, is the Volk. Now, the Volk assault rifle is a pretty interesting weapon, and that's the Volk right here. Again, it's one of those kind of A/B tier weapons, but it is pretty good, so I am going to slide it on into A. I think it's actually a pretty solid weapon, and I feel like that's my answer for a lot of assault rifles. You're not going to see really any assault rifles in the C or D tier. There's one coming up that you are guaranteed to see in there, but most of the assault rifles in this game are pretty dang solid. So moving on, that's the Cooper Carbine. That's S tier. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. In my opinion, it's the best gun in all of Vanguard. So for me, the Cooper Carbine is definitely going to be an S tier weapon. Now, moving on, we have the KGM40 assault rifle, which I believe is sitting right here. Now, this again, it's kind of like an A/B tier for me. KGM40, I'm more going to slide on into that B tier though, because like I said, it is an above average weapon, but it's not like amazing by any means, so I am going to slide it right on in to that B tier. Nikita AVT, also kind of that A/B range, but I think the Nikita is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and give it that A tier. Kind of debatable, but I think it's pretty fair to give the Nikita the A tier. Now moving on, we have the Vargo S. Now let me go ahead and find the picture here for that Vargo S. I believe this is it right here. It's kind of that A-B area again. I feel like I repeated myself a lot when it comes to the assault rifles, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it into that B tier. And then moving on, the EX1, it's D tier. It's probably the worst assault rifle in Vanguard. Now, it is the worst assault rifle in Vanguard by far. That's not even a question. It's D tier. The BP50, probably B tier. It's pretty good, so it's kind of that B/A range again, but I don't feel like it's as good as the weapons that I have in A tier, like the bar and such, so I'm going to throw it ahead in that B tier. Moving on, though, we are moving on to the SMGs now, starting up first with the MP40. This is the MP40. Similar to the STG, it was meta since day one. It was one of those weapons that, it was the STG and the MP40 day one that took over Vanguard, and it kind of remained at the top of the SMG meta the entire year. So for that reason, throwing it on in the S tier. Moving on, we have the Sten Smg. The Sten isn't great. It's really not. It's kind of that C/D tier for me. I don't think it's as bad as the EX1, so for that reason, I'm throwing it in the C tier. We're going to be revisiting the C tier very, very soon here as well, because there is going to be another weapon that I throw in there very shortly. The Tommy gun, the M1928. I didn't want to throw it in C. It's either A or B for me. I don't think it's an A tier SMG. I do think it's a B tier SMG, so that's where I'm going to throw it. Next up is the Owen Gun, probably one of the most unique looking guns, and it's very hard to not see this one. So Owen Gun for me is kind of that B/C tier. I think it's a little bit better than the Sten though. So I'm going to throw it ahead in the B tier, kind of with that Tommy gun. After that is the Type 100. Now, the Type 100, I believe, is this beautiful looking gun right here. So the Type 100 for me, again, kind of that B/C tier, but I like it. I'm going to throw it in the B tier. The C and D tier aren't going to have many weapons. I'm going to be honest. A and B are going to have the most. Moving on, PPSH. I apologize. Moving on is the PPSH. This is kind of that A/S tier for me. I don't think it's as good as the MP40 though, so I'm going to have to throw it on an A tier. But the PPSH is a very, very, very solid weapon. But moving on, we do have the well gun. Now, the well gun for me is kind of that... Where did it go? I just tossed it. The well gun for me is right here. It's kind of that A/S tier weapon. If you have to ask me, I'm feeling like it's more like an S tier. It's one of the best SMGs in the entire game, right up there with the MP40. So I feel pretty confident about throwing it into the S tier. Moving on, though, we have the Armaguerra 43. Now, the Armaguerra is kind of, it's A tier. It's not, I don't think, as good as the well gun. It can be at times, but I think overall, if you're looking at SMGs, you're going to probably choose the well gun over the Armaguerra, even though the Armaguerra has better fire rate. Personally, for me, I would choose the well gun over it. So that for that reason, I'm putting the Armaguerra in the A tier. Moving on, we have the H4 Blixen. For me, this is A/B. It's kind of hard to determine, but I think it's better than the Owen gun and such. So for that reason, we got to throw it on in the A tier. Moving on, we have the Marco 5, probably the most interesting weapon. Not interesting, but the smallest weapon. And I think that's kind of... Actually, you know what? It fell on into B tier, and I think that's right. I think it is a B tier weapon. And that, as well as the RA225, those are both B tier SMGs. They are from season 4 and 5 respectively, but they are respectively, but they are also B tier weapons. Now moving on, because that is every single SMG, let's move on to the LMGs and get things started here with the, trying to find it, I believe this here is the MG42. It's kind of A/B tier for me. I'm going to throw it ahead in B tier, but do understand that I think it's kind of that like halfway point in between type deal. That's not the MG42 either. That is. So I'm going to throw it in that B tier and move on to the DP27, the old dinner plate. Now, personally, with the DP27, I think it is also one of the more powerful weapons here in Vanguard this year. Now, I don't actually see the DP27 either. Did I? Really hoping I didn't also forget the DP, but it looks like I did. So, messed up on that one. But that's okay. DP27, I'm also kind of throwing in that B tier. So, you know, not really missing out on too much by throwing it on in that B tier. Type 11, B tier as well. It's got... Type 11 is more B/C. I'm going to throw it in C, actually. I'm going to throw the Type 11 in C tier. There aren't many weapons in C tier, like I said. But I think the Type 11 is probably C tier. The Bren... B tier, I think, is fair for the Bren. It's a pretty solid LMG, but it's definitely not the best. I think B tier is pretty solid for that. The Whitley, I think as far as LMGs goes, I think the Whitley is most certainly A tier. It's a really solid SMG, but I do not think it is S tier, but it is very, very solid nonetheless. Moving on, we have the UGM8. I also think it's A tier. It's a pretty solid LMG all around, and you definitely cannot go wrong with it. Moving on from that, however, we do have the brand new Liena 57. And the Liena 57, I haven't used too much. However, I do think it's kind of going to be going into that A tier because it feels more like an AR than an LMG, and I think it's a pretty solid option all around. So I think for that reason, we're throwing it on in that A tier. But moving on, we have the Marksman Rifles, starting off with the M1 Garand. I'm going to be honest, these next few weapons are going to be a lot in C and D tier, right? So going to be starting off with the M1 Garand. I think that's honestly probably going to be C tier. As far as Marksman Rifles goes, I didn't use a lot this year, but I do think it's going to be in that C tier, starting off strong. Not really strong. SVT, D tier, pretty self-explanatory. I do think it's D tier. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. I will be right back. All right, so we are back, and we are coming back with the G43. I think this is going to be a C tier weapon. Now, it's again kind of a marksman rifle. I'm not really a fan of them, to be honest, but that's okay. Moving on, the M1916. It's probably C tier. It honestly, it's probably C tier, if I'm being real. Again, I didn't use marksman rifles too much, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I do think it's probably a C tier weapon. Starting off with the snipers, we have the Type 99. As far as snipers goes, it's probably a D tier sniper. It's not great. That as well as, actually, you know what? Probably C tier. That as well as the 3-line rifle. I think the 3-line rifle is probably C or D tier. I'm going to throw it in D. And moving on, we got the Car 98K. That's probably going to be in B. B or A. I think A, because there's no snipers in A, and I think it's pretty fair. And then finally, the Grenko anti-tank rifle is D tier. So that is every single weapon in Call of Duty Vanguard ranked on a tier list from S, A, B, C, and D. I hope you guys all enjoyed. and let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And you guys can check out this tier list that I made. Of course, I forgot those 2 weapons. I will link it in the description below, and you guys can make your own tier list. Let me know what you guys think about my tier list, and I will see you guys in the next video.